So our third speaker, his name is Dilip Prabhu. I could introduce him for a long time because I've known him for a long time. I think we met in 1994. So a long time ago. How many years ago is that? 26 years ago. And I actually met him before I was a devotee. So he had the misfortune to meet me at that time because I was I probably still am, but I was very arrogant and puffed up. And he was my teacher in Yeshidhar is laughing. You want to add something to that? Anyway, we were doing a program some of you may have heard of called the Landmark Forum, which is global. It's a personal development program. Some of it's based on Indian philosophy, not our philosophy, probably more Maharaja. But it has some very powerful messages. And Dilip was pretty accomplished in that school of thought. And I'd signed up to this program. So he was my teacher. So he had the misfortune to be my teacher. And he was teaching my ex-wife and I in a group of about 50 of us. So it was quite an experience. So I don't want to steal any of his thunder and explain how he ended up meeting Gurudev. But let me just say that he came to Gurudev. He first met Gurudev in 2007. And he came over 3 times to do some tremendous work with the Sangha, because we all know that while we have the highest philosophy in terms of conception of Krishna, Radha Krishna, and Manjari Bhav, the goal, Anya Balasta Sunyam, let's say the jiva to jiva relationships aren't always so hot, aren't always so harmonious. And so Dilip came across to try and serve the devotees in the sense of improving the harmony between people within the Sangha. And he really put his life on the line doing that, and has since stayed interested and committed to bhakti. And I've seen his beautiful evolution in bhakti yoga and Vaishnavism, and every bit of progress he makes gives me great joy as my brother. So I'm very excited and heartened to offer to you my dear, beautiful god brother, Dilip Prabhu, who will offer his Pushpanjali. Haribol, Dilip. Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Yashodhananda Prabhu. Can you hear me okay? Is it
perfect? Perfect.
Thank you so much. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Haribol, I offer my obeisances to my beloved Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, and to Srila Ram Maharaj. It's the greatest honor for me to be able to speak and glorify Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada today. Forgive me, I have very little to offer in terms of my personal connection with Sri Ram Maharaj, other than I know that he was the dearest and closest associate, friend, and god brother of our Srila. Of Srila Gurudev. So I offer my respect to Sri Ram Maharaj. I'm really praying that Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada Ram Maharaj can help me to glorify them today. And I want to start by also thanking Yashodhananda Prabhu for asking me to come, and I'll tell you the story in a minute of how I got to actually meet Gurudev, which is a magical mystery tour. I also want to thank Badara Prabhu. Are you there, Badara Prabhu? I can't tell if you're here today or not. But if you are, Badara Prabhu, you know, you're so important also. Hi, Hare Krishna Lalita. Forgive me if I get emotional.
time, Dilip. Take your time.
I think I've waited a long time to have this opportunity. So now it's come. I feel lost for words. So forgive me, and I'll just try my best to convey my appreciation. So I get a call from Yashodananda Prabhu. It was the summer of 2007. And I'm driving my car with my kids, who were twins, 5 years old at the time. And it was a sunny afternoon. There was a beautiful vista of Hampstead. I remember it very well. And for me, it was a turning point, but it was also just a Sunday afternoon drive, but it changed the course of my life forever. And I'm always going to be grateful to Yashodananda Prabhu for that. So he calls me up, and I'd been in this program with him. We'd known each other for many years. So anything from Yashodananda Prabhu was always going to be colorful, interesting, and exciting, whatever the conversation. It doesn't really matter whether we're talking about something mundane or spiritual. So he says to me out of the blue, he says, Dilip, he was in Badger at the time, and I didn't even know where Badger was. He says, I'm going to ask you a question and make a request of you. And before you answer, I want you to say yes. So I was hooked. And for me, it was quite typical of Yashodananda Prabhu. It was like, yes, it was kind of different, but it was also normal for me. So I said, yeah, sure. So he goes, I want you to come to India and work with my guru and his sangha. And you have to remember at that time, my level of consciousness is still just beginning to emerge. It's very small, especially compared to where it could be in my potential that Gurudeva sees in me. Anyway, so I said yes. And I didn't know really what I was saying yes to, other than it felt good. And here it's a magical mystery tour. Let's go. Something must have touched me. And I realize now, looking back, especially as I get present to Gurudeva and Srila Prabhupada, that, it was Gurudev's orchestration. It's taken 14 years to realize that. I had some understanding of it, but at the time, it was just a great thing to do. So here I go. I go to Vrindavan. It's Kartik. It's 2007. I get off the plane. I go to my in-laws who live in Delhi, and I have a little nap. It's all going very well. And I remember getting up from that short nap, waiting for the car to arrive to take me to Vrindavan. And something was very different. Something was very, very different. It wasn't just a nap. I woke refreshed, renewed, relaxed, excited. I didn't know what was coming, but I just felt something had changed. Now, at the time, it was just a beautiful, sweet, relaxing sleep. But looking back, I felt it could only be Gurudev's presence. So I arrive in Mathura, and it's, although I'm from India, I hadn't really had the experience of being in these temples. By the way, I got to backtrack because I've just seen Badara Prabhu sit down, so it reminds me of something that happened just before I got on the plane. Yashodananda takes me to meet his good friend and mentor and dear godbrother, Badara Prabhu, and we met at the Landmark Hotel just down the road from where I live. And remember, I was at this time thinking of this as an exciting, important piece of work, because I'm a management consultant, leadership coach, trainer. And so on the one level, it's a mystical experience a bit, but mostly it's just an assignment that I take very seriously. So Badara Prabhu's there, we're having a cup of whatever we're having. And at some level, I was thinking, Badara Prabhu's got a big responsibility here. Because what if Yashodananda's lost the plot and got some crazy guy in? Now, I spoke to Yashodananda about this yesterday, and he said, no, listen, I was just thought Vidara could give context for you. But for me, it was a big deal, especially looking back. So thank you for not doing that, Prabhu. Thanks for trusting your heart and taking a chance. Because Yashodananda was sold on the idea, but you didn't know me, and you had a seniority in the Sangha, so you could have thought, flipping out, Yashoda, let's take a rain check here. But you didn't. So that was the background too. So I arrive in Mathura. Again, it's a mystical experience for me. It's a bit like a movie, you know. I've been in India, I've been in many situations, but nothing really prepared me, you know, for this experience. And it wasn't just the ancient buildings, it was something beyond that that I couldn't put my finger on. And I think the meeting with Gurudev was very, very, very brief. I remember Gurudev, this is just a recollection, you know, because he needed to hear something. Yashodananda was my interpreter, sitting at his feet. And all I remember is coming away thinking, I'm in, you know. He's given me his blessings. And remember, as a consultant, there's always this thought in my mind, whatever my assignment, whether it's working with the Department of Health and Social Work, or whether it's working with the CEO, there's always an element of, I think they're going to find out I'm a bit of a fraud. You know, what's the checks going on here? Who is this guy? What's his qualifications as a leadership coach or a consultant? How do we check him out? If you're an architect, you point to a building. But with Gurudev, looking back, of course, the time was brief, it was beautiful, but looking back, he really gave me his blessing. And that's the magic of Gurudev. He knew. Me thinking I'm not a worthy person, it's taken me 14 years to realize that. He gave me his blessing. It's taken a long time to get there. So anyway, so then I meet Rajanath Prabhu, and that was also a very mystical, beautiful connection. He took me into his room across the way from the temple, and we had I remember it was the building was literally falling apart. I don't even know if there's water in the taps, and it was just incredible. But we sat there and we felt like we'd become friends and we'd always known each other. And he too, for me, looking back, was a gatekeeper. There was Badara, and then there was Rajanath. And somehow, not only did he let me in, he let me into his heart. And that was the mood of Gurudev's, and still is the mood. Of Gurudev Sangha. And I think I remember something like love and affection was an echo in my word. He literally didn't say very much. Now, this is a remarkable thing about Gurudev. Remarkable, unbelievable wisdom. Because normally when I have an assignment with a client or an organization, I need to take notes, pages and pages and pages. And Badara Prabhu, you'll know what I mean. It really requires a lot of diagnosis to understand what is it the actual client wants here. What is the brief? What is the direction of travel? What are the complexities, the subtleties, the nuances? And here was Gurudev trusting me with his Sangha, with his dearmost devotees, senior, young, old, and taking me into the chamber of, you know, his heart. At the time, it didn't feel like that, by the way. It's just like, hey, you know, he didn't seem to say anything, so I'm in. And then when I walked into the meeting that had been arranged at the top of this beautiful terrace where monkeys were dancing and playing. There was, how many of us were there? Yashodananda Prabhu, about 100 people, I can't remember, but it was just something like that, right? He's nodding. And you know, what happened in those 3 days just stayed in my heart forever. It was just, I mean, I've been in lots of different environments. I've had the privilege of working with all kinds of people. But nothing could have prepared me for working with the devotees of Gurudev Sangha. They were sharing their hearts. I was having the time of my life, by the way. It was just magical. It was just unbelievable. It was really, really unbelievable. As an experience level, it was electrifying, illuminating, but it was more than that. Now, at the time, I could only glimpse a portion of that transcendental presence of Gurudev all the way through. And that's why you probably see that I'm a bit tearful, because I wish I'd been more conscious at the time, more able to appreciate it at deeper level. The devotees were saying, thank you so much, frequently. And I said, no, I thank you. And I meant it. But I said, you've given me so much more than I could say. And I didn't even know what I was talking about until more recently. I should say that, you know, it's only in the last couple of years that I'm beginning to realize this. And by the day, the Zoomathon was life-changing for me too, because each day I appreciate the magic, the wonder, the beauty of Gurudev. He's given me everything. I just regret and pray for his forgiveness that I wasn't able to see it. I remember Rajna saying, you know, one of the devotees saying at the time in this meeting, which went on for 3 or 4 days, you know, he said, I don't know if Gurudev loves me. And we laughed about this. He's become a dear friend, a senior sannyasi, Gurudev's. And I laughed with him, and this is in front of everyone. I said, I can really understand that on my level. I think Gurudev thinks of me as his lawyer. So it was just, you know, I don't even know at the time whether Gurudev saw me, but at the same time, he did. He knew. He gave his blessings. And I wanted to share with you some words that came to me today about what love and affection is, because that was the brief. He didn't explain it. He just said it. And it was like, I got the whole thing of my brief in those 3 words. Everything. So this is why I wrote about love and affection, because it really has changed my life and is changing my life. For me, love and affection is profound, subtle, natural, ordinary on the surface, divine and eternal in nature, a transcendental melody reverberating in my heart, echoing in the universe like ripples in water, changing the quality of the ocean, more than beauty can express, beyond sentiment, a higher intelligence, the ultimate guiding principle, truth, the promise of wonder, a foundation of friendship, a magical unifying force, the doorway to Guru Parampara, essence of Krishna and Srimati Radhika. So that's what he gave me in those 3 words, and I've been working with it for 14 years ever since, and each day it just seems deeper, more magical. As Shamrani Didi reminded me recently, just go, you know, Gurudev's words are deep, deeper, and deepest. And just when I think I've got to the bottom of the ocean, a whole universe opens up for Gurudev. So we had the program, it went very well. And as Yashodananda Prabhu said, you know, there were more meetings. I had the privilege of working with the sannyasis for 3 days in Govardhan. I worked with Gurudev's management team, including Udara Prabhu in Italy, Madhav Maharaj, Rajna. I hope I haven't missed anybody. Anyway, so it was some amazing experiences, and I'll move on. I don't know how I'm doing time. I've never done this before, so I'm so grateful. This is the greatest honor for me to glorify Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. The last meeting that I had with Gurudev was in Brighton. Do you remember that year that was? Vishuddhananda Prabhu. Was it 2008 or 2009? I can't remember.
No, it's 2009, yes.
2009.
Definitely.
And again, you know, Gurudev's so kind. I wasn't even thinking to go, but Vishuddhananda Prabhu being the most amazing friend that you could ever imagine. He said, you must come. Thank goodness I did. Thank goodness I did. Because remember, for me, Gurudeva at that time was still like an uncle, a gracious man, a beautiful saint, whatever I understood by that. But I still didn't appreciate his transcendental nature. So we met, and you know, I said to Gurudeva, I said, Gurudeva, I really, you know, because by this time the work had come to an end at the stage, and I said, Gurudeva, I wish I could have done more for the Sangha. And I meant it. I really felt I'd fallen short. I wish I could have done more and completed the work. And I still feel that. He looked at me, and it was very casual, as it always was with Gurudeva. On the one hand, he said, no, I'm very happy with you. And at the time, you know, I thought, he's just saying that, you know, he's a nice guy. He's being polite. I really, that sounds flippant. I don't mean to sound that way. But now I appreciate what he meant. Gurudeva didn't say anything by accident or chance. He meant it. He was happy. And then, you know, he gave me some sweets to take for my family. And as often I've heard devotees say, as I was leaving and as he was going, he said, I'm very happy with you. And he said, it was almost a glance. And he said, if we need you, you must help us. So again, I thought, okay, of course, you know, he's a wonderful man. He's given me so much. And if anybody asks me something, if I can, I'll help. But I didn't realize until more recently, that was an instruction. So that he gave me a beautiful gift. So over the years, I've tried my best to serve the devotees. And I see it as a great honor if I can help in any way. And that has become more and more important as our Sangha develops. And, you know, I would like to put my best foot forward and take no credit for it other than to serve Gurudev in the best way I can. So what has he given me? He's given me everything. We only had a few exchanges, but he's given me, as Yashashvani said to me yesterday, you know, he's given me Gurudev, he's given me a Sangha, his relationships. I have the most beautiful well-wishers and friends. Two of them are here, and Lalita as well, and Yashashvani, and other people, forgive me if I've forgotten anyone, but so many great fans. Tapasvi Maharaj, Nemi Maharaj, Gopalji, so many. But Brajanath Prabhu, Vrinda, these are my dear, dear, dear friends. I can see Jagatam, Didi as well. So sweet, amazing, amazing friends, associates. So he's given me everything. He's given me purpose. In a few words, he was so tolerant, Gurudev. This is the other thing I wanted to underline that I had learned about Gurudev in his Sangha. This blew my mind. There were there was one devotee, and I certainly hope nobody knows who I'm talking about, and forgive me if there's any criticism, but there was one devotee in the Sangha, and I'm pretty tolerant, nothing like the ocean of infinite tolerance of Gurudev, but I came across somebody that I thought shouldn't be anywhere near that Sangha. I just couldn't believe that that was possible. This person could have such a senior role, a voice. And I say that with them, and I don't have that view now, but at the time it was really like, I don't get that very often, by the way, in any organization. But this particular person, I just thought, flip man, this guy should not be around. And although I understood Gurudev at some level, this is something that quizzed me. And then I realized, of course, that everyone's his child. Gurudev accepts all his children, everyone. So tolerant. Taught me so much. And then the other unexpected thing that happened was, if I now would like to also glorify Srila Prabhupada, for a few minutes, if I may. If I've got the time, Prabhu, have I got some time left?
Yes,
5
you
minutes
have.
or...
Sorry, I put myself on mute. You got another 7 minutes, Prabhu.
So the 7 minutes I spend talking about Srila Prabhupada, it's the gift of Gurudeva to connect me with Srila Prabhupada. And I pray he won't be offended by speaking only 7 minutes about Srila Prabhupada. But Guru is one, so they're playing a little team with me. So in my work, you know, there aren't many heroes for me in the material world. So I'd read Srila Prabhupada's book about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it touched, I couldn't put it down. His biography, by the way. And it literally, I don't read that much, although I've studied literature at university and Spanish and French. I don't pick up books and finish them. But this one, I literally was so disappointed I had to go to bed. I just couldn't stop reading it. It just touched just went straight into my, being a slow learner, a slippery fish. It took a few years. I'm going to try and speed it up. So it was in my consciousness that Srila Prabhupada was calling through Gurudev's kind connection. So, and then I was with Shodnanda about 2 years ago, and Yashashvini Didi was there. And those of you who know her, she loves Gurudev, she loves Srila Prabhupada, she loves Guru Parampara. And I just looked at her one day, they'd just been reading together. And I just saw Srila Prabhupada's love in her eyes. And that took me to another part of the journey, which was unexpected, to find out more about him. And, you know, that has changed some things. So I'd like to read something very briefly from Mukunda Das, who takes me back to where I often meditate with Srila Prabhupada in the early days. I wish I'd been around. Somehow I am. That's why I've always got so much respect for Jagatam Didi, for Yashashvini Didi, for these devotees who combine Guru Parampara, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Gurudev, because I think it's the most exquisite combination. And of course, many other devotees, including Vidara Prabhu, Brajanath, they have these long, and many people I don't even know. So Mukunda writes, and you've read this, many of you. He said, from the very start, I knew that His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was the most extraordinary man I'd ever met. I'll just read bits. The first meeting occurred in the summer of '66 in New York City. A friend had invited me to hear a lecture by an old Indian Swami on Lower Manhattan's Bowery. Overwhelmed with curiosity about a Swami lecturing on Skid Row, I went there and felt my way up a pitch black staircase. I find myself walking up that staircase with Mukunda Das often. A bell-like rhythmic sound got louder and clearer as I climbed higher. Finally, I reached the 4th floor and opened the door, and there he was, about 50 feet away, where I stood at the other end of a long, dark room. He sat on us, and his face and saffron robes radiant under a small light. He was elderly, perhaps 60. I think he was 70 at the time. I thought, and he sat cross-legged in an erect, stately posture. Then he goes on. I saw that Srila Prabhupada slept on a small mattress in the summer afternoon, and that his clothes hung on lines at the back of the room where they were drying in the summer afternoon heat. He washed them himself. This is what touched my heart. These small details about Srila Prabhupada. And cooked his own food. On an ingenious utensil he had fashioned with his own hands in India. In this 4-layer apparatus, he cooked 4 preparations at once, Stacked all around him in his ancient-looking portable typewriter, another section of the room was seemingly endless manuscripts. He spent almost all his waking hours, about 20 and 24, I learned, typing the sequels of the 3 volumes I had purchased. It was a projected 60-volume set called the Srimad Bhagavatam, and virtually it was the encyclopedia of spiritual life. I just thought that was incredible. He exemplified what he called plain living and high thinking. That's amazing. I shall never die, Srila Prabhupada once said. I shall live in my books forever. He passed away from this world on November the 14th, 1977, but surely he will live forever. The last thing I want to say, if I can, is what encapsulates everything that Gurudeva and Srila Prabhupada have given me, and that is purpose. Purpose for me so that I can be of service to them. Excuse me. This is the first purpose of ISKCON that some of you be so familiar with, but Nemi Maharaj was kind enough to educate me in this, and it's changed my world. And this is my purpose, is to be of service to Srila Gurudeva, Srila Prabhupada, in uniting people in love and affection. But this one purpose encapsulated beautifully. The purpose of ISKCON, number one, is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, and to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. And with that, I want to stop because of time, and thank you. As I bring this to an end, there's so many things I could say as I finish. My father-in-law, one thing comes to mind was, so everybody in India is a guru on every street corner. And, he met Srila Prabhupada once, didn't think I know anything of it. But before he passed, he went to Vrindavan, and my father-in-law doesn't bow to any guru, but for some reason, Gurudev's magic, as he was passing Gurudev's picture, he bowed. And that was a real blessing for him before he passed. So many things have happened, so many stories to tell, and I feel like I'm just at the beginning of something spring-like, magical. And I want to thank you all for your kind, wonderful offerings over the past months. It has touched my heart so deeply. I'm so grateful to all of you for the team that have put together the Zoomathon, all the team in the background. You may have no idea how it's touched me and helped me to deepen my relationship with Guru Parampara. I look forward to being of service to you any way I can. And Shodhananda Prabhu, thank you again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Dilip Haribol. In Shamala Didi beautifully said that Gurudev told her to bring her heart on a golden platter to her Diksha ceremony. And I feel that that's what you've done for this Pushpanjali. I feel that you've offered your heart to Gurudev and to Prabhupada on a golden platter, not quite sure, can't read my writing. And I really honor that, very beautiful. And I'm really excited to see how your heart evolves over the next, however many years we have left on this mortal coil. I think Bhakti Yoga is quite humorous, actually, because I'm looking at Budara, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm looking at you, Budara. Yeah, is that you? Yeah. And I remember looking.
I'm glad you find looking at me humorous.
No, I didn't say that. But it's very humorous because when I said, Dilip, will you say yes to my request? I kind of knew in my consciousness, because it was coming from Gurudev, that Gurudev, through me, was up to some mischief, drawing Dilip in. And of course, I knew that Dilip had no idea what he was getting himself in for, but I knew it was going to be wonderful. And and there's a real symmetry going back to Bradara when I visited you with my ex-wife in Aberdeen. And I remember you given me one mantra, actually not, I think you very skillfully didn't give me the Maha mantra. You gave me Om Namah Shivaya because you were drip feeding me this Vaishnavism. And I don't think you wanted me to exactly know what I was getting myself in for. And you said, as I left the door, as I left your house in Aberdeen, you said something like, "Oh, you've stepped on a sheet of energy," and I was like, "Yeah, it's fine, it's great. I know how to deal with energy." It's like I was totally clueless and like overly confident. And obviously, as the years went by, I went back to that conversation and kind of realized, oh yeah, he was really, yes, I really wasn't listening very carefully. But it's quite humorous. The process is very grave and serious as people come into devotional service and we all evolve, but also it's quite funny at the same time.